right, well then, someone would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the fiscal year 26 budget that we received from the zoning board.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Adams, aye.
So do I.
All right.
Randall, abstain.
Kelly, aye. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the building department budget.
Mark, I just want to bring to your attention this typo in the explanation. The hours increase is 12, not 6.
Expected more. Okay,
Can I ask a question?
yes, of course.
So can you explain why the permit, the $5,000 permit row expense is now on the select board budget?
Well, there was a process for all that. I'm trying to remember the details of it. At the beginning, Permit Pro, all of it was charged to the building department, all the fees, which is, no matter what department the fees came in through the credit card, fees were put into the building department, which was wrong. So that got straightened out, and then, we didn't, when I got a rid of the Permit Pro, there was no reason for the building department to pay the use of it. So, I think the select board put down that responsibility, they're the ones that want to be responsible for the money. So I think that's why it's on the select board. Because I think they also
Yeah, that's
have
a,
difficulty trying to understand how to separate by department.
Yeah, I think the issue of Permit Pro was one that, this board chose to purchase for the use of all the different departments involved in licensing, like the flea market licensing, for example, and that sort. So it was really, I mean, there's no way that it would be parceled out to so much for health, so much for building, so much for selectmen. This is for that town board, where we'll be responsible for that piece of it.
So all that fee is coming out of the select board?
So it's paid 2/3 out of select board, 1/3 out of the market down, which we administer. So it's all paid out of the select board office.
Because my understanding is, like I said, fiscal 22, 23, and 24 coming out of the building department budget was the third of Permit Pro. So it was a third, a third, a third. A third came out of our budget, a third came out of the flea market, and a third was coming out of the building department, which makes sense. Like, and talking to Marie about this, that's how it was divided. It was the way they were kind of justifying the usage of Permit Pro by each department. So the fact that the building department's back online, that portion, that third of the Permit Pro should most likely go back into the building department budget, the way it was, and keep it a third, third, a third. Or if we're saying that we just want to keep it all in the select board's budget, that's fine, and take the flea market portion and put it all in the select board. So keep it either under the select board budget, or put it back to the way it was, gradually one way or the other. You know, and with that said, with Permit Pro, and I know I had mentioned this a while back with the department heads that are using it, you have to allocate some funds for Permit Pro. So this is just the fees to have Permit Pro. So this is so we can get permits online, right? That's what this fee is. On top of that, if there's a form or something that a department wants to, update on Permit Pro, so some forms are generic and there's no fee. They can pull a state form, blah, 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 throw a logo on it. It's up on our site, it's through Permit Pro, life is good. There are other things that requires Permit Pro to create a form or make it custom to ours, which there are fees for that. So that fee part should be figured in, and I'm not saying you use it, but it should be part of your budget process. Now, again, if the select board's budget is going to handle Permit Pro moving forward, right? Just one, it's in our line item 20, is that right? I think it's line item 20 in our budget, that would be Permit Pro. Then the select board in our budget, we should probably then earmark just an extra $2 couple grand a year for those departments to make those adjustments they need. Does that make sense? That way they're, you know, not, I mean, they're not using funds or having to come to FinCom for something because it's an unforeseen, when they kind of should know, they may not use that money. They may not need to do any forms this year, that's fine. The money just goes back to the general fund right at the end of the day, next year's budget. So, that's good, again, for us, the board, to decide how we want to do that, so.
Personally, I would like to see 2/3 come out of the selectmen budget, because it's just shifted from this account to this account. But I also, and I will preface this next comment with, I do have a ruling from ethics, that when it comes to talking about the actual flea market fund, once the money's in there, it's no longer flea market related, it's towns, and we can discuss this. So the other 1/3, I would like to see come out of that, because that does seem to be the lion's share of the permits are. So that would be my suggestion.
Again, I know my conversation with Marie, the way it was third, and she liked it that, I mean, our accountant liked it that way, but, you know, again, my point is, we pick one or the other. Either we do it all under the board and we budget accordingly, or I think we should put it back the way it was. You're right, and again, it's just a housekeeping.
It's the same amount of money, it's just where you put it.
That's right. That's why at first, when I talked to our accountant, like I said, she liked it the way it was, you know, because it's just justification for it, right? Because you can see that the money that paying and permit pros coming in, each department is covering their expenses. Permit pros being covered, it's not costing us.
All right, so that was my suggestion. Does anybody want to make a motion or different?
But that decision doesn't have to, where the money comes from, I mean, that doesn't need to be made tonight, because that's our budget, so we don't have to discuss that.
We don't have to discuss.
We don't have to discuss what George is saying, like, we don't need to make that decision tonight.
No.
The only thing we'd have to decide, if the board wants it to come out of the building department's budget, then yes, we would have to make a motion on that. That budget's what's in front of us.
So I think, yeah, so if, I think if we're happy, saying that, you know, 2/3 and 1/3, then just make it even. The remaining, yeah. So why don't we make that as a motion strictly for the purposes of permit pro, and then we can approve the budget as submitted.
So you want a motion about permit pro for the building department?
Just say we'll make 2/3 of the total amount of permit pro will be assessed to the selectmen's office, we'll have the money from there down into the building account, and 1/3 will come out of the remaining 1/3 will come out of the flea market. See, the loss I recall, because I think technically it's not a, all right.
Okay, I'll make a motion that 2/3 of permit pro comes out of the select board account, and 1/3 of permit pro costs comes out of the flea market account.
You know, said, everybody all in favor of this, please?
Adams, no.
So, yes.
Or yes.
Dawn, yes.
Kelly, aye.
Now, next, right, so for the building department, I'd like to talk about decreased salary again for the assistant and the clerk. At our last meeting, as we approved those additional $8,000 to carry that position to the end of this business year, or fiscal year. I mean, I was pretty clear about where I stood on that as a board member. However, I also understand we had to do what we needed to do, because at the time, if we didn't do it, that position on March 19th would have been no funds for the salary. So then again, the building department then basically wouldn't be functioning properly, and that would create all kinds of problems and so forth. So the fix we did last week, to me, is a Band-Aid fix. We got what we needed to do to get it to our end of our fiscal year. chairman on this, that we should let the public decide on this. This is their budget. By us, as a board voting to level fund it, or with a 2.5% increase, then the building department, the commissioner can go to the town, annual town meeting, and present that to the town. So the town can hear the justification for it. If they are okay with it, I'm fine with it. Okay? I think the board would be, fine, that's what the town wants, that's what they want, it's their budget. But I don't, again, I'm open for discussion on this. I just feel that I think we should be doing a better job as stewards of our finances and our resources in the town. And I don't think, personally, we're not doing that. If we just go ahead and rubber stamp this and send it over to FinCom and figure it out. Okay? And I really think the townspeople should have a say in this. This is a pretty big increase in the position. And I've done the right, I've had conversations with people, and there's been other positions in this town where we made increases and then things change, and those positions, those hours never get reduced. They never do. And with everything going on right now in government in general, this is what the presidents want. They want, us to be held accountable.
And I have to have something to say about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
I have the complete opposite approach to that. I personally have spent a lot of time understanding, interviewing, talking to all the different members. I've talked to the electrical inspector, the building inspector, I spoke to Andrea. I've sat there and watched what was happening, what was going on, and I have to say, this board approved this in 2 steps. Okay, the first step was an increase in hours, and when we did that the first time through, there was a motion for 4 hours a day to do this. The board said, no, we're not going to do that. And the reason that we said that was because, as Mr. Adams pointed out, once you give these hours, it's impossible to take them away later. Okay, so we agreed as a board, and I believe unanimously, so if somebody knows how to talk, feel free to say so, that we would start it with 2 hours and see where we were. And that 30 days in, we would review that again, and we would decide if there was additional time that was required. When we got Andrea and the building inspector and the electrical inspector, they all came in, the board talked about it, and everybody agreed at that point that we would add 1 additional day. I think the original move was for 2. We said, yeah, we don't think that that's necessary, 1 hour a day, because that ended up being, 12 hours a week that they would be working on this. I think to say that we would level fund it presupposes that there's no additional expense to what's going to be required to pick up the electrical inspector work, which is more than just entering stuff in permit mode. It has to do with taking walk-ins, taking all kinds of information, working with the paperwork that he presents. When we made the decision to take the money out of the Thames River grant last meeting, it was, in my opinion, it was with the understanding that the town floor would get an opportunity to decide whether or not they want to do this. I think going in and saying, we don't think, if you want to do anything, this is the time to pick it up, because it kind of looks like we're saying we don't think that this extra work that's required. If we go in and say, this is what it would be for the work that we anticipate, we're saying, we have looked at this, we've talked to people, we've paid attention, this is what it will cost to cover these hours. And if the town floor says, you know what, we're not comfortable with that. We don't want to give that much money, we only want to give enough for 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day, whatever it ends up being, then that's what we will live with. But I think, we need to support the operation. We're going to do this without putting names and faces to this, okay? We all agreed that the additional work was worthy of additional time and that an additional day, okay? There were issues, as we all know, mistakenly, I would say, that we just presupposed that we would fund this thing out of a reserve fund, and that was not how that worked. So I would support
when I met with Andrew months back, when I made that motion for the 4 hours, and I met with Scott as well, it was pretty clear. I mean, the hours weren't there. I still don't see it. I don't think that the FinCom meeting, reading the minutes and stuff, they didn't see it. Okay, that's why it keeps getting bounced around. I feel, but I agree, if, again, keep in mind with this position, it got added hours when it went online back in 2021, I think it was. You know, that position had additional hours to go online, and she took the training that, Andrew was working with, she took the training at Permit Pro, she became a super user, she's getting paid additional hours for that. That was given to her 4 or 5 years ago. It's in the FinCom minutes, you can read it, okay? So, again, but I don't have a problem getting additional hours here, another 4 hours to up, we can figure the math out and adjust that and improve that adjustment, and then, again, let the building department pitch it. If they want to, they can get up like in other town meetings, boards made suggestions, FinCom's made suggestions, and you're right, the townspeople, or department head can make a recommendation and make changes, that's fine.
Okay, I feel, let's be honest with you, this question is death over the last couple of months.
So, may I ask something? So regardless, if George wants us to take that out there and just level fund it, it's still gonna go to town people, right? If we leave that there, it's still gonna go to town people, right? Are you asking to level fund it so it doesn't look like we're supporting it?
I think so. And again, I just said level funding because I didn't have exact numbers yet. I think it's warranted, like originally, when I was tasked by this board to be the point of contact of the building department and work with Permit Pro to figure out, my recommendation was 4 hours. Okay? It all was approved on the 8 hours back in October? Yeah, with the stipulation of review. That's why I approved yes. That's why I said yes, because maybe I'm missing something. Let's do the work. And then, there was 30, it was like 60 days later, they came back and we got the extra hours, the 12 is what it is. Okay? Without anything, with nothing changing from what I heard. Does that make sense? There's no other data, there's no justification except we're just printing this stuff off and answering emails for the building, or for the electrical inspector. And I'll be honest, I don't even know what that really means. I didn't dive into it. Did I sit down and work with Andrea, for a day or a week to see everything? No. But to answer your question, I think the board's in favor of giving her additional hours. I just don't feel we've got the justification to justify the full 28 hours a week. That's where I'm getting at. So I'm okay if we want to figure out the 4 hours, keep it a 20-hour position, and then if there is an issue, come town meeting, and and Andrea has a good handle, that department has a good handle of the extra hours that are needed, and if she's falling behind, and there's the scope of work, and then that can be explained on town floor, right? The department head now, not us, the board, the department head is explaining these increased hours. Because permits aren't, let's be honest, the building department pretty much is self-funded. Money coming in off of permits is covering all their expenses. But permits go up and down. We can look at the history. So that revenue, we gotta be careful with that, because this increase in stuff, and
So
that I'm just nervous, that's all. I just wanna make sure moving forward that it stays funded, that it's not costing the town people money. And again, are the hours really necessary? Because to us as a board, I still haven't seen it.
So an extension of that argument could be that everybody gets level funded and everybody has to make their case to the town floor for additional time.
Yeah, if we want. I mean, we could. I mean, again, we have that option. I'm not saying it's the right option. Okay, I would have done the same thing with the clerks, with the planning and zoning, if I felt that those hours weren't justified. I'd be asking the same thing.
Okay.
That's
All right,
all.
let's do this. You know what, I don't feel like I'm cutting us off from discussing this. We've discussed this and it was here. So I'm gonna ask now if
department to justify it, that's all. That's it, you know?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'm gonna call this to a vote. All in favor?
Adam's eye.
So do I.
Go like another half an hour.
Ultimately, we are not making the ultimate decision.
No, exactly, no. And it, you know, right, whenever we vote, it goes back to the FinCom. No, she's good to,
Yeah, I know, for the next decision.
Yeah.
We funded a lot of the other.
Right.
This is just the right last.
The department head would just have to look in front of the townspeople and
he's
explain.
gonna do that either way.
Correct, and that's
That's why I was asking you to do it this way. Randall, yes. He's gotta go there.
Kelly, no. All right. Now you have your decision on that. Next up, we have the select board budget. So we've got the ambulance service, which is, there's nothing to decide here. This is all contractual. This is what they deal with for this coming years. And next up is the select, why do we have the moderator of the selectmen's budget? Just out of curiosity, is that where they've been carrying it? Yes. Joe, can I impose on you for an opinion on that? No.
You can't hear him.
All right. All right. Do we have any questions on this?
Joe,
Joe.
the moderator's budget, is it usually under our budget, the stipend? Is that?
It has been the last couple of years.
Okay.
I think it's all right. Yeah.
I don't understand why that would be, that's a what?
It has been at least the last 3 years, I don't know.
Okay.
The reasoning behind it, or if a little before that, but that's what I have.
I think it's under your budget because town meeting is put on by you guys, the moderator runs the town meeting that we put on. But actually earlier today, I was wondering who I could write to about the moderator stipend. Because I think that it should be, at the very least, it's like $167. And we've been having 2 town meetings averaging. But either way, you need a moderator. And because I think it's $167 for the year. I didn't realize that was gonna be on.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to review this one.
But if that's possible,
Yeah, we actually got this late, right?
Well, I sent it over with everything except town council. Sent me their proposal today, and town council's proposal was no change from last year.
So when we review that, it'll be level funded.
The only thing different than what were FinCom's recommendations was I think $150
Well, that's something that we can certainly advertise. Well, there's been some talk about, unofficially, about shared clerk, something like that. So I don't think at this stage of the game, or I should say that we need to talk to other boards and committees and see if anybody's interested in having a shared clerk. Some may not. So I'd say let's see who we are before we commit to that. Chris, you okay with that?
Yeah, we want to make, I mean, where's the benchmark here, the moderator? Can you put that up?
I don't know if they did want to now. It's quite $167 on $199. What if you do $250
How
per meeting?
about this? What if we just table this to our next meeting? We have to have it done at this meeting. Can we do that and then we put some thought
Get
together?
this out of the next meeting, okay, please? Okay, so,
I'll speak some notes. We'll look at, I'll look at the moderator and some of the expenses and education.
okay, so next up, I put this on here